There are Hollywood stars who chase the spotlight, and then there's Sam Elliott. For decades, he's been the gravel-voiced cowboy who rarely raised his voice, never spilled secrets, and carried himself with the kind of quiet dignity that felt more frontier than film set. But now, at 80 years old, that silence has cracked. And when it did, what came out wasn't polite anecdotes or carefully polished PR lines. It was raw, unfiltered truth. Sam Elliott finally revealed the actors, and even one Oscar-winning director he simply couldn't stand working with. Some names will shock you. Others might make more sense than you'd expect. But all of them paint a picture of a man who has always stood by one code: respect the West, respect the craft, or get out of his way. Benedict Cumberbatch, the Brit in cowboy boots. The first name Elliot dropped sent a shockwave across Hollywood. Back in 2021, while most actors would have offered a vague, diplomatic review, Sam went for the jugular. Appearing on a podcast, he tore into Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog, the Oscar-winning film that critics adored, but Sam dismissed as pretentious misfire. And he didn't just critique the movie, he zeroed in on its star, Benedict Cumberbatch. To Elliot, Cumberbatch's performance wasn't authentic. It was stiff, prissy, and almost comical. In Sam's words, "What the hell does this Brit know about the American West?" That single line lit the fuse. Film critics accused Elliot of being out of touch, of gatekeeping masculinity in a genre now being reshaped to include more nuance and vulnerability. Supporters of The Power of the Dog argued the film was a daring exploration of repression and hidden identity. But Sam didn't flinch. To him, cowboy life isn't art house theater. It isn't posture and costume. It's a lived reality, built on silence, grit, and unspoken rules. No matter how much preparation Cumberbatch did, no matter how many hours he spent learning ranch life, Elliot felt the cultural disconnect was unbridgeable. And so, Benedict Cumberbatch became the first name on a list Sam Elliott never thought he'd reveal. But Cumberbatch wasn't the only one. If Sam disliked polished art house acting, he had an even bigger problem with unhinged chaos. Nicolas Cage, Chaos versus Stillness, where Sam Elliott believes acting is about restraint, about letting silence carry weight. Nicolas Cage has built an entire career on doing the exact opposite. Cage's style is manic, explosive, unpredictable. To millions of fans, that's genius. To Sam Elliott, it was disorder. When the two shared the screen in Ghost Rider, you might think sparks would fly. On screen, yes. Off screen, not at all. Sam did his job, delivered his lines with stoic gravitas, but he kept his distance. Later, he described actors like Cage as more firework than flame, a stinging indictment that said it all, flashy, loud, and gone in a moment, leaving little behind but smoke. Sam's philosophy has always been that the strongest performances come from subtlety, a glance, a pause, the kind of silence that pulls the audience closer. Cage, by contrast, was an eruption, and Sam thought it hollow. Awards, fan devotion, and critical praise never swayed him. Elliot saw Cage's style as erosion of an art form he considered sacred. To Sam, it wasn't rivalry. It wasn't bitterness. It was simply a fundamental difference in values, and a line he would never cross. But if Nicolas Cage embodied chaos, the next name on Elliot's list represented something even worse in his eyes: Hollywood's glossy version of the West. Kevin Costner, soap opera in boots. Sam Elliott doesn't just play cowboys, he is one. Raised in the American West, steeped in ranch life, he brought authenticity to every role. Authenticity that can't be faked with wardrobe or dialogue. So when Kevin Costner became Hollywood's favorite modern cowboy, first in Wyatt Earp and later in Yellowstone, Elliot wasn't impressed. Costner's version of ranch life was too polished, too cinematic. The boots were clean, the cattle barely smelled, and the lines were delivered with Hollywood smoothness rather than weathered grit. In private, Sam scoffed. He plays a rancher like it's dress up, like cosplay. That single remark captures Elliott's lifelong frustration with what he sees as a diluted version of Western storytelling. The biggest clash came with Yellowstone. While the show became a phenomenon, Sam turned down an offer to appear. Why? He dismissed it outright as soap opera with a cowboy hat. The tension never boiled over into open hostility, but producers described the chill between them as enough to freeze a desert. For Elliott, it wasn't personal, it was principle. Costner symbolized the Hollywood West. Glossy, curated, cinematic. Elliott stood for the old code. Quiet, raw, authentic. And neither man was willing to bend. If Costner was too glossy, the next actor was too theatrical. And for Sam Elliott, pretension was the biggest sin of all. Jared Leto, pretension over purpose. Few actors divide opinion like Jared Leto. For some, he's a daring chameleon who disappears into roles. For others, he's a headline chaser who mistakes antics for artistry. Sam Elliott falls firmly in the second camp. When stories emerged of Leto sending rats to his Suicide Squad co-stars, staying in character offset and blurring the line between performance and real life, Elliott rolled his eyes. He's acting like acting is a carnival, he reportedly told a friend. To Elliott, acting should never be about props, stunts, or spectacle outside the lens. It should be about truth told simply, without fanfare. Leto represented the exact opposite. There was even a project where the two almost crossed paths. Elliott quietly walked away the moment the casting shifted toward Leto. No press statement, no dramatic feud, just silence. A silence that said everything. But if Jared Leto represented theatrical pretension, the next name hit even closer to home. Sam actually worked with him day after day, and still found him lacking. Ashton Kutcher, the algorithm actor. Netflix's The Ranch paired Sam Elliott with Ashton Kutcher. On paper, it looked like a clash of generations. The old-school cowboy actor beside the sitcom star turned tech investor. On set, it was exactly that. Elliott stayed professional, showed up, delivered his lines with the same authenticity he always had. But behind the scenes, he wasn't impressed. Crew members recalled him muttering, "Decent guy, but no real actor." For Elliott, Kutcher represented the modern system, where charisma, charm, and a massive following could catapult someone to stardom without the hard road of grit and discipline. Sam had climbed through bit parts and character roles before becoming a legend. Kutcher had rocketed to fame on sitcom laughs and viral appeal. Publicly, Kutcher was gracious, praising Elliott as a mentor and legend. Privately, Elliott kept his distance. To him, Kutcher's energy was light, crowd-pleasing, but hollow. It lacked the weight and truth real storytelling demanded. Sam's criticisms weren't limited to actors. When it came to directors, he could be just as unforgiving, and in one case, it sparked a public feud heard across Hollywood. Jane Campion, the director's showdown. Elliott's firestorm around the power of the dog didn't just target Benedict Cumberbatch. It hit the film's director, Jane Campion, head-on. Sam dismissed her take on the West as inauthentic, going as far as saying a filmmaker from New Zealand had no business exploring cowboy culture. Campion didn't stay silent. At the Directors Guild of America Awards, she clapped back in front of the entire industry. "He's not a cowboy, he's an actor." The moment was explosive. Critics framed it as a battle between old Hollywood and new, between gatekeeping tradition and inclusive storytelling. Campion accused Elliott's comments of being not just dismissive, but sexist, an attempt to control who had the right to tell Western stories. Sam, true to form, didn't issue an apology. He stood by his code, even if it cost him goodwill. For him, the West wasn't a setting for reimagination. It was a way of life, and he wasn't about to compromise that belief. But perhaps the most painful name on Elliott's list wasn't an enemy at all. It was a friend, one he thought he'd never lose. Jeff Bridges. There was a time when Sam Elliott and Jeff Bridges felt like brothers. In The Big Lebowski, their chemistry was undeniable. Elliott's gravel-toned stranger perfectly balanced Bridges' laid-back dude. Off-screen, they shared mutual respect. Both were authentic, grounded, and allergic to Hollywood glamour. But after Bridges won his Oscar for Crazy Heart in 2010, something shifted. He became harder to reach, more polished, more aware of his status. To most, it was natural evolution. To Sam, it was a quiet betrayal of the values they once shared. Later, Elliot made a cryptic remark. Some folks change, others just show who they always were. Fans immediately linked it to Bridges. What hurt wasn't anger, it was loss. The two stopped attending each other's premieres, stopped offering the casual support that once defined their friendship. No public fights, no dramatic falling out, just silence. For Elliot, loyalty was sacred. When it faded, it cut deeper than any feud. And with that, the list was complete. Not just a roll call of grudges, but a map of what Sam Elliott stands for. Sam Elliott is more than a Hollywood actor. He's a relic of a code that values silence over spectacle, authenticity over polish, principle over popularity. At 80, he finally said the names he had carried for years. To some, he's a stubborn relic, refusing to adapt to a changing Hollywood. To others, he's the last sentinel guarding a craft that has lost its soul. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. But one thing is certain. Sam Elliott never bent, never softened, and never compromised the West he carried in his bones. So what do you think? Is Sam Elliott holding the line as the last true cowboy in Hollywood? Or is he simply unwilling to accept that the world, and the art form he loves, has moved on?